Hello my friends, we're going to be painting another moody forest today. This is because I found a picture from a trip of mine to Europe last fall, and it was like this pine tree forest, moody, foggy sort of painting, and I thought that if I have a reference photo for a moody forest painting, that it'll be a lot more organized and easy to, what do you call it, like instruct, I guess, because I did film a moody pine tree painting that you guys will see. You'll probably already see it. It will have already been released by the time that you see this one. And it was more of like a sketchbook Sunday because it was really hard to instruct and kind of say, oh, do this now, because I kept changing my mind. It was kind of a disaster. So this photo is, you know, since I'm going off a photo, I can't really improvise. I mean, I still can improvise, but it's going to be a lot more structured. I'm going to make this photo available on my Patreon account as a reference. If you are a Patreon member and you do not see this photo by the time this video is released on my Patreon, please tell me, because I might forget to upload it, and then I will upload it. So what we're doing is creating a gradient first. I'm using my mop brush by Winsor & Newton, and I've taken black and basically applied it to a more concentrated amount of it on the bottom half of my page, and then faded it out to a very, very light gray, almost white, like almost non-existent at the top. And this is because my reference photo is basically black from here downwards, and that's because I don't know how to take pictures. So it doesn't look, yeah, well, we're just gonna go with it. It's going to be a much more contrasting moody forest than most of my paintings. So this is still wet, like my first layer is still wet, but I'm going to just keep piling on the black on the bottom here because it's going to be very black. I taped my borders, by the way, if you're wondering. This is because I didn't want to deal with the buckling of the paper. So yeah. So I'm gonna have to let this dry in order, if I want to make the bottom half darker. So I'm gonna let it dry and then apply another layer. So I believe this is mostly dry. I'm gonna pick up some black watercolor. I'm gonna try to get just a lot of black watercolor and very little water, just so I don't have to keep painting layer after layer after layer. I just kind of want to paint the layer and be done with it. Oh, you know what? I did a really stupid thing, guys. In my haste to paint this dark background, I kind of forgot to do the first layer of trees, so we're gonna have to do another layer anyways. Sorry. So I'm just rinsing my mop brush to get rid of that black because I do want the top of my painting to be very light. Painting that out before creating that gradient. Okay. So this is where I gotta paint that first layer. I'm gonna switch to my size 1 by Winsor & Newton here. I love this bleeding effect. It's, I love it. I love it. Sometimes it works out for me, sometimes it doesn't, and I really like how that looks. Okay. I'm gonna move my palette over because you guys like to look at my palette, like the colors. I have no room on here. Oh my gosh. Hold on. Taking some tissue paper or some toilet paper. That is the advantage of painting in a bathroom. Got instant tons of toilet paper available. So, I've taken some black, I'm watering it down a little bit. I don't want too much, like I want it watered down, but I don't want too much water on my paintbrush because then it'll bleed into a blob since the background is still wet, which is what we want. We do. And actually on that note, I am not gonna use my size 1. I'm gonna use quadruple 0 here because then it'll bleed a lot less. So I'm gonna have one pine tree extending upwards like this, and it's going to have some branches coming off of it. So this first layer I am kind of improvising. I'm not really going too much off of the photo because my reference photo doesn't actually have very many faded trees in the background. But I want my painting to have faded trees in the background because it adds depth to the painting. It's a sad looking pine tree. Hope it'll fade out a little bit. So that looks very depressing. So I kind of want this to dry a little bit so that I can start painting on more intense layers on top. Dry, dry, dry. I usually use a hair dryer to help the process along, but I don't want it to dry completely. I just want it to be dry enough that it holds a little bit more water or paint in comparison to these two guys that we've already painted. So I've got, let's see if it's dried up. No, it's still pretty wet. I took a hair dryer to it. So hopefully it's a little bit, yeah, that's a lot better. Okay. So I just have my laptop right in front of me looking at this tree. I'm really trying to emulate how these pine trees look because they're so different than how I paint pine trees. Interesting Italian pine trees. Oh, that might be too complicated to do. That technique. That would take forever. I'm not too interested in spending an eternity on pine trees. Because, so the tutorial that I released, like the moody one, before the, or I hope that it'll be before this one, that it's released. What was I gonna say? Oh yes, that one took over an hour. Like that was a ridiculously long painting because I didn't have a reference photo and I was just going off of intuition, and I was fixing a lot of mistakes. Like a lot of things were not going the way I wanted them to go, and so It didn't really end up looking how I intended. It was way too light. I really wanted it to be super dark. So when I saw this one, when I saw this photo, the reference photo that I'm using here, it like half of it is black basically. So I'm like, oh, this is perfect. This is gonna be my reference. This is what we're gonna go with. I think I'm going to switch here to my size 1 because it's taking a little long to get those branches down. Yeah, this already looks nothing like like the trees in my picture. Oh my goodness. Whatever. You know, I look at other people's, not many people do painting tutorials of these, but on Instagram there's a lot of people that paint these moody sort of pine tree forest paintings, and they just post pictures. And I really wonder what their pine tree painting technique is, because they look so good. Like, it makes me really not like my own style. But they don't have videos, they just post the finished product. So I will have to keep practicing, keep developing my own style, and that's best, honestly. That is the best thing to do. Develop your own style and go with it. So at some point, this is going to just totally turn into black. So I don't want to waste my time painting branches too much. Somewhere around here. Like, I'm gonna just go over that completely with black. Okay. That doesn't look too bad. Not bad at all. I'm gonna have another tree. I'm gonna brave it with my size 1, even though it's smaller than the one that we just painted. And it's kind of starts off here. So if you guys are new to my channel, or you're really wanting to improve how you paint pine trees, I have a lot of resources in a lot of different places showing you pine tree painting techniques. So I've got several videos on my channel. I've got, several showing you different pine tree painting techniques. I've got some that specifically focus on one technique, and I really go into detail on how to use that technique. On Skillshare, which there is a free 1-month trial, link in my description, you can go check out my Skillshare class on 8 different techniques to paint pine trees, or evergreens, I should say. So please go take a gander at those if you are looking to improve your pine tree painting, or you're not happy with your pine tree painting. You might discover a technique that really works for you in any of those resources. I've kind of stopped going into detail on how to paint individual pine trees within paintings because I have so many resources. Like, these are more paintings, I'm gonna just close up here. These are just more showing you the landscape, the composition, how you can incorporate pine trees into a landscape, and I mean, you're welcome to look at the technique that I'm using to paint these pine trees, but they're always a little bit different because I'm still, after all these years, trying to find my style that I really like. Like, I thought I found it a few times, but doesn't always suit the landscape that I'm painting. So this guy, I'm gonna actually have the branches start going the other way. That. So again, this is gonna turn into just a total black. My intention is to make this bottom part just totally black, so I don't want to go too much further down and waste my time if it's going to be covered anyway. So I'm going to leave that the way it is. I'm going to go back. All right, what are we going to do next here? I want to start painting really black pine trees because they dry to be very light. I don't like that. So I'm gonna have one that extends way past our painting, like that. There's a lot going on in these branches, holy moly. So reference photos are really just that. It's just a reference. So, you know, if you want to change something up, you have the freedom to do that. Mine certainly do not look, or this painting certainly does not look exactly like this paint. Like, I'm trying to follow the general branch structure, or sorry, tree positioning, but the branch structure is what is going to vary quite a bit for me here. My very favorite moody pine tree painting is one that I did a very long time ago. It looks so cool. I don't know how I did it. It was a total fluke. Just the way that I painted the fog, it really looks, it's kind of like something that you do once in your life and you just, that's the height of your work and you marvel at it. But, you know, you can practice. I'm starting to get a little lazy here. As this particular tree in my reference photo moves, as we go down it, it becomes much more opaque and thick. Like you can't really see through the branches as much. So I'm trying to paint that while still trying to make it look realistic, you know? And at one point it just turns into a big blob. So I think I'm gonna leave this guy the way it is for now. And I'm gonna move on to this side. We're gonna create all the like misty effects after we're done the top portion here. Obviously that might change. So I have another tree that comes up pretty high, up to here. And it starts off being pretty thick right away. Like these are quite thin at the top, but this one is just very full. I'm really trying to develop a technique that allows me to cover the tree in a quicker way, so that it still looks like it looks intentional, like I applied all these details meticulously, but so that it doesn't actually take me that long in reality. And I don't like experimenting with different styles in a single painting because then it doesn't look natural. Then you're like, what is going on? You've got so many different looking pine trees in one painting. And I don't want that. So this tutorial is going to be released in April, I believe. So I want to know what you guys are up to this spring. What are you looking forward to most? Because I'm painting this in, it's February 28th today. It's the last day of February. I'm sick of the winter. I've said this in so many tutorials. And I really wonder what April's gonna look like. Because when we first moved here, we moved here mid-March, I believe, 2 years ago. And I recall that there was a bit of snow when we moved here, but within a week we were in our t-shirts. Obviously that didn't last the rest of the month of March, but like it became warm fairly quickly here. Whereas last year we had a really late spring, like spring just didn't want to come. We had maybe a week of spring and then it just went straight into summer. And I'm really scared that that's what's going to happen this year, because I cannot go another month of winter in March. Like March is usually, you know, when things start warming up. Maple syrup season starts. Everyone's happy. But gosh, if it's gonna just be an extension of winter, I'm gonna have a hard time. All right, what are we gonna do now? I'm gonna have another tree here, I believe. I want some, because in my picture there's a lot more trees behind these trees. It looks much thicker. So I'm gonna try to do that. Paint it, but I'm gonna make them a little bit lighter. like a tree there. These I'm not going to focus on painting them too detailed. I just want to fill in that space. So that's starting to become a little bit thicker, which is nice. Denser forest. I'm getting really lazy with my pine trees now. Like I just kind of want to be done with them. Which I should have done the opposite. Like the first few layers I should have just lazied my way out. But what are you gonna do? Okay. I do want to make this part darker. So I'll have another tree maybe here. Just totally fill this area in. Here we go. Okay, so now comes the part that kind of makes or breaks the painting, I believe. So I'm going to switch to my size 14 by Grumbacher. I'm going to pick up a lot of black watercolor that is very dark. And I'm covering this bottom portion. I really want it dark. So I just went straight in the watercolor. I didn't water it down. Although I'm gonna need some water because it's starting to dry out a little bit. So yeah, here's some water. So I gotta be careful here with this part because I have to make this black transition very naturally into these trees, right? I can't just do like a solid black line. It's not gonna look very natural if I do that. So I have to go over portions of trees that I've already painted. So this guy. So what I'm gonna try to do now is maybe create a misty effect in this bottom portion here. So I've rinsed my brush and then dried it a little bit on a paper towel. And now I want to transition into these lighter trees that weren't quite as dark. So this is going to be a little tricky. I want to extend some of that misty look up the side here. I like that. Maybe even have it come up somehow. Not too, like I've picked up way too much water. It's not good. But how can I naturally have it come down into this valley? And then I'm going to have to extend it upwards. Even though we're just using basically water at this point at the top here, I still have to do it because if I don't, it's going to look cauliflowery. So you have to be very careful in this part. So now everything's covered, I think, with a layer. But I want to create mist. So I've grabbed some paper towel. I'm going to attempt this. I'm dabbing this paper towel just in that bottom section. Extending upwards. So the issue is that all of this was partly dry already. So I have to re-wet it. It's not good because it's going to cauliflower for sure everywhere else where it's dried as well. So I'm gonna first do a bit of dabbing up here, maybe coming down into this section. And then again down here. So that doesn't look very good at all. This is what I did in that painting from a long time ago, and it ended up looking so good. I don't know. Today's just not my day. Seems like no day is my day. And extending the pine tree downwards a little bit to cover that patch up because it looks super bare. Same with this one. So this looks like a little bit of a disaster currently. I'm not happy with what I did. I shouldn't have extended that mist everywhere. It's fine the way it was. I'm pressing a little bit lighter with my paper towel this time. Maybe it won't create such a harsh contrast and make it look a little bit nicer. Don't give up. That's my advice, guys. Don't give up, because you never know. You never know what it's going to end up looking like. As much as tempting as it is to give up right now, don't give up. I don't like this cauliflower thing happening. Oh man, oh man, oh man. So we're going on 40 minutes now on this painting. I was really thinking that this was going to be a quick one. But when you're working with this technique, I guess nothing is quick. Okay, I'm gonna let this dry and then see what we can do with it. See if we can spruce it up a little bit, make it look a little nicer. Fix anything that we can fix. And I mean, it's not like it looks terrible right now. It's just I had higher hopes for it. But yeah, let's just give it a chance. Let it dry and we'll come back to it. Okay guys, so that is basically it for the painting. The last step is obviously just to peel the tape off to reveal your clean edges. Didn't turn out exactly how I wanted it to, but it's not too bad. So let me know what you think. Just comment down below, hit like on this video, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.